Yeah, we're gonna start in a minute. Let's wait for more people to arrive and then we can start. If you can hear me, let me know. If the sound is good, just let me know, please. Let me know if you can hear me loud and clear, please. Just let me know. If you can hear me loud and clear, please. Just let me know. How you guys doing today? If you guys can hear me, please let me know. We're gonna start shortly. We'll start shortly. All right. We're gonna start very soon, very soon. Okay, Nana, thank you very much. You guys can hear me loud and clear. Thank you. Let's give it another maybe 3 minutes and then we can start. Hopefully today we're gonna have a lot of people to join because I prepared something nice to share with you guys. So I'm just hoping that we have a lot of folks tonight. Okay. Yeah, Michael, thank you so much. Michael Kolani, thank you so much for the kind words. I appreciate it. Noble Kofi Ataji, all the way in Aho. Thank you for being part of the Cyber Talk. We're gonna start very soon. Let me see what I can share the link. Please, guys, help me to share the link, please. Help me to share the link, please. Let's share the link, please. Let's share the link. Let's invite more people to be part of the show. So help me to share the link, please. All right, let's see. Let's get more people involved. Please help me to share, please. Okay, let me also continue sharing. Let's start at 8:10, okay? Let's start at 8:10. Let me also share a little bit more and then we can start. We're gonna start very soon. Let's share it for the next 3 minutes and then I'll start. How you guys doing? I hope you guys doing well. I'm trying to share a little bit more and then we can start. Let's share a little bit more. Okay, about 2 minutes for us to start. We're gonna start in 2 minutes. In 2 minutes. 2 minutes, we start. It's a lovely Thursday evening. So we're getting ready to start. All right, in about 2 minutes. Tell me how you doing. You good? Yeah, guys. If you as you join, if you can let me know who is on Facebook Live, just let me know. At least so that I can say hi. So just let me know. So we're gonna be starting like in about a minute. All right. Okay. think it's about time for us to just start. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So you guys can hear me very well. I see Kofi Kwafi. Kofi Kwafi. You're welcome. All right. Good. So let's just start. You know, today maybe it's beautiful. A lot of people are still outside. They are not here yet, but we're gonna do what we got to do, and hopefully you guys gonna enjoy today's information that I have. Okay. So I always start by saying that what I'm teaching you guys today cannot be used to hack into anybody's account. Okay. So whatever you learn today is for educational purpose only. You can't use it to hack anybody. Nanaya, you're welcome. Giovanni, you're welcome. It's good that you guys here. So once again, so anything that I teach here cannot be used to hack into people's account or get unauthorized access to people's information. So whatever I teach here is purely educational to inform you guys, to help you to better protect your information. Okay. So on today's agenda, we're going to continue with the security core principles that we started 2 weeks ago. We talk about the AA protocols, right? That is, we talk about accountability. We talk about authentication, authorization, and accountability. So today we're going to continue our discussion with integrity, availability, and also I'm going to do some demonstration for you guys to see how this stuff work, and I'm going to relate it to our day-to-day life. What are some of the tools that you can actually use to protect the integrity and availability of your information? Okay. So the core principles, as we discussed since last 2 weeks, the core principles in IT security or in cyber security are confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So we know that from our earlier discussions that confidentiality has to do with preventing unauthorized disclosure of information. So any safeguard or control that you put in place to make sure that people don't have unauthorized access to your information is what we call confidentiality. And examples of control or safeguard that we look at was your username and password, right? Your username and password is a way for you to prevent people to have unauthorized access to information. Another thing we look at was having a way to make sure that you monitor the system, you monitor or track activities within the system to know what was done, right? So in terms of accountability, we also talk about authorization. Authorization has to do with making sure that the right level of access is given to an individual, right? So if all of us have access to the same computer, right, we shouldn't have the same level of access. The access should be based on our core duties. And I gave an example last time that when you go to a restaurant, right, and you buy something and you want to avoid that transaction, say you don't like it anymore, usually they're going to call a manager to come and void that transaction for you. So it means that the server that even serve you doesn't have the right privilege, or that doesn't have the authorization within the system to void your transaction. Somebody else have to come to do that. So you have to understand that authorization play a key roles when it comes to the confidentiality, right? And I gave another example too, that if you have a computer, right, make sure that we have two type of account to log into the computer. You have a standard account and then you have a privileged account. So for your day-to-day activities, you want to use the standard account to log into your system. Then when you require something that need like to escalate your privilege, like downloading stuff, right, then you can the computer will prompt you. If you are using Windows or Linux, it can prompt you to put your administrative credentials. That way, if somebody hacked into your account as you are log in, right, they're going to have the same privilege that you have. So imagine if you are working or on daily basis, you log into your account using your privilege account. When somebody hack into your system or a malware attack your machine and get executed, then that malware will also going to have a higher privilege within your machine. Okay, so we talk about all that for the past 2 weeks. So today we're going to dive into integrity. So integrity here is about giving the assurance that modification cannot happen unauthorized. So we want to prevent the unauthorized modification of data or information. So integrity is different from confidentiality. Confidentiality is to prevent the unauthorized disclosure of information, right? But integrity is about protecting against the unauthorized modification. So there is a difference there. And then availability talks about making the information available when needed. Flora, Ella, Nanu. Flora, how are you doing? Welcome to the show. So that is the 3 key points of the cyber security concept. So we're going to continue with this. So what is integrity? So when we talk about integrity, one thing that usually comes into mind in terms of cryptography is what we call a hash, right? So how does a hash work? So a hash is the process to create a unique string of character from any data source. So with a hash, when we talk about hash in cryptography, if you take any string of data and we hash it, you're going to get a unique, right, string of characters. So for example, here on the screen you can see that I have the source of the data is penetration. So when you hash that penetration through a hashing algorithm like SHA-1, SHA-2, MD4, MD5, you're going to get a hash value, right? So if you take penetration testing, it shouldn't give you the same hash value. It should be different because the source data is different. Now, the way hash work is, if I take a test like penetration and I modify it, right, and I run it through the hash algorithm, it shouldn't give me the same hash value. So if I have penetration test and penetration testing or penetration, right, or let's say penetration here, and I put an S at the end, it shouldn't give me the same hash value. So penetration with S should have different values. So that is the difference. So remember, hash is used to maintain integrity. So one another example is, if I have, let's say I have a file within my computer and I hash that file and I come back tomorrow and I check the hash of the same file and it's not like the one I have yesterday, then I know that there's a modification that happened within that file. Okay, Serge Akpokle, you are welcome to the show. Ezose Junior Saya, you are welcome to the show. So just remember the concept of using cryptography or hash is a process of to ensure that if there's a modification that take place within design within a source of data, you can notice that. Okay, so now I'm just going to show you guys something quick. I have a tool here on my computer. This tool is called Crypto Tool. Okay, so it's a tool that is just for educational purpose, where you can use to demonstrate some of the hash algorithm that we have. So here you can see that if I select this and go next, these are examples of hash algorithm you can use. The most popular ones are the MD5, the SHA-1, and SHA-256, or also called SHA-2, are the most prominent one, right, in terms of hashing stuff. Okay, so here, let's say I want to hash something. What we were talking about, penetration. Let's say here you have a test, right? This test, this test that you have here, this is the hash right here. But let's do something. Let me change this to something else. Let's say this cyber talk is good, right? Okay, this cyber talk is good. So if you look at the hash, see the hash end with A8. That's the end of the hash. The hash end with A8, right? So now if I remove the full stop or the period after the good, look at the end very well. The end is not the same. That means a modification happened. So let's try something else. Let's say penetration testing, right? So here, if you look at this penetration testing, you have 2D at the end here. If I add maybe an S, you see that the hash is not the same. So you guys have to be mindful that the purpose of hash is to make sure that if there is any modification to the data, you are aware. So if we go back to the beginning of this, you can see that these are examples of hash algorithms that we have. Okay, now so there are some hash algorithms that are not good, right? So like MD4 is not good. SHA-1 is not good. Is less secure and could be easily reverted. So what I mean by that is that if you hash something with MD4, I'll be able to decipher it to see the plain text. Why am I saying this? Now, what happened is that most of the password that you have, like let's say if you go to, let's say you have an account with let's say Wells Fargo, and you have created a username and password. Now your password is actually saved in the Wells Fargo server, right, in a hash form. So your actual password is not saved. So let's say, for example, if my password is, let's say Wells Fargo is using SHA-256, right? So my first time I created a username and password, that password will be hashed and stored on the server. So let's say my password is this. Let's say my password is this is complicated. So let's say this is my password. So this password will be hashed. So this value, the hash value, is what is actually stored within the server, right? So this is what is stored within the server, not your plain text. So on the server, you don't have this is complicated saved on the server, but rather, right, your hash, the hash of your password is stored on the server. So now the thing is, if you are using, like, if that server is using algorithm like SHA-1 or MD4, somebody through some popular tools can actually reverse this hash to get your password. I'm going to do a demonstration later to show you an example. So somebody can actually revert this hash to get your plain password, right? And then that means the person have access to your account. So now let me give you a hint. Anytime you go to a website, let's say you have a website where you have a username and password, or you have an account, and maybe you forgot your password, and they have a process for you to recover your password. And let's say, okay, you went through the process and they actually send you an email with your actual password, right? They didn't ask you, like, they didn't send you a temporary password to use to create a new password, but they actually sent you your original password in the plain text. Then I can tell you that that system is not secure, because they are actually saving your password in what we call a clear text. It means that if somebody actually hack into that company's server, they're just going to get your password in clear text. They don't even have to do anything to crack it. So just be mindful. If you have a website or you have an account somewhere, you forgot your password, and they actually sent you your plain password back, that system is not secure, right? Meaning that if a hacker have access to that server, they're gonna get your password. Okay, and there are some funny companies that do that. They save your actual password on their server, which they don't have to do. They have to save the hash of your password using strong hash algorithm like SHA-256. That's what it's supposed to do. Okay, so now there's something that you also have to know. The stronger your password, right, it's going to be very difficult for somebody to actually reverse the hash of your password to guess what it is, right? So if you use, so let's say for example, what the bad guys will do is that, let's say the bad guys, this is what they're going to do. I'm going to do something quick for you. So what the bad guys do, there's something we call in our jargon a rainbow table. In the penetration testing jargon, there's something we call a rainbow table. A rainbow table is just a table full of plain text with their corresponding hash, right? So that's what it is. Is a plain text, right? A plain text with their corresponding hash. That's what it is. So for example, if I have a rainbow table and let's say I have a word like beautiful. Yeah, beautiful, right? And maybe the hash is this. Right? I have another word like student. And the hash is, let's say, something like this. Right? So let's say that's the hash. And then let me do a third one. So let's say I have another word like good. And the hash is something like this. Right? So that's the hash. So now a rainbow table will contain a list of words with their corresponding hash. So it could be, maybe let's say for example's sake, we say this is the plain text. This is the plain text, right? So this is the plain text. So plain text. And this is maybe MD, let's say MD5, right? So this is the MD5. Okay, so let's say this is MD5. So if I have a rainbow table like this and I'm able to hack into a system and I'm able to collect maybe hash from the system, all those hashes from the system, then I come back, I have a rainbow table. I can compare and see. So let's say if I'm looking through my table and I see like on the system where I collected all those hash, there's one hash like this one, then I know the corresponding plain text is student. Right? You see the trick? So if I see a hash from the system I collected is this one, then I know automatically that the plain text password is this. So now, if you have a very complicated password, right, it's most likely that it's not going to be part of the rainbow table. So if I have a password like this, let's say my password is something like this. All right, it is most likely that these will not make it to the rainbow table. Now be mindful, people actually sell these rainbow tables and they are tools that you don't have to do the comparison manually. They are tools that you can use that can automate the process of using the rainbow table and comparing the plain text to the hash for you quickly. So you have to be mindful of that. Okay, so having a long password, that is a combination of long password, combination of lowercase, uppercase, numbers, and symbols, is a very good way to protect yourself against somebody guessing your password. right? So I would say that if you want to create a password, you need to have a long password to at least 40 characters. And how do you remember 40 characters? The easy way for you to remember is to create a paraphrase, a passphrase, right? Create a passphrase, right? Like for example, you can say, you can create a paraphrase like this. This is what we mean by paraphrase. I can say something like this: Serge is my friend from Togo since 1965. Something like this with exclamation point. So this is a very good password, but you can easily remember it because it is a passphrase, right? So be in the habit to create a longer password by using a passphrase. Okay, so that will be my advice number one for you. Okay, now there's something also I want to talk about quickly. Now, in most Linux system, so what do I mean by Linux? In the IT world, you have two most popular operating system, right? You have what we call the Windows operating system, or you have the Linux operating system. If you have an Android phone, it's based on Linux. If you have a Windows computer, it's based on a Windows. So we have different versions of Windows. You have Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, all are examples, right? If you have a MacBook, it's based on Linux, right? Now, the good thing with a Linux system is that, and people using Mac will say, oh, our Mac is secure and blah, 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 is that with Linux-based system, what happens is that when you create a password, let's say I create a password called, let's say my password is Bob. That's my password, right? Now, if it is Windows system, you create a password called Bob. That is the algorithm is applied to Bob, whether you are using MD5 or hash SHA-2, then it will generate a hash for you, right? So it's straightforward. In Windows, you take the plain text, you run it through the algorithm, and then you get a hash. Now, Linux is more secure. They use something called salting. The salting technique is a technique whereby when they take the plain text, right, the system will add a random number to that plain text before running it through the algorithm and give you a hash, right? So it means that if you and I, let's say Serge and myself, have the same password, which is Bob, right, a random number will be added to that Bob before it's stored as a password for each of us. Although myself and Serge have the same password, but we're going to have a different hash because of the random number added to the plain text, right? So it means that if I am a hacker and I'm trying to hack a Linux system, using a rainbow table will not help me, because with Linux system, every password is they add a random number to that password before it's hashed. Now, how do I determine that random number? So it becomes so difficult to do. Now, the only way you can actually hack into a Linux system is that when you hack into that Linux system, there are two files that you need to get, right? If you're able to get those two files, then you might be lucky to actually guess the password. And those two files, if you are familiar with Linux, there are two files that you need to get. The first file is called shadow file, and this file has all the password on the Linux. And you need to get the passwd file, has all the username, right? So in Linux, if you can get access to these two files and using a tool like Hashcat, or if it's not Hashcat, John the Ripper, you'll be able to maybe guess or crack the password. Okay, but remember, the longer and complicated your password, it's going to be virtually impossible to use any tool to actually crack those passwords. Now, even with Hashcat and John the Ripper, the only way you can actually crack those passwords is whatever table we are using or whatever dictionary we are using to do the cracking has to contain your password. So meaning, if you have a password which is very complicated, you cannot find in any dictionary, even with all these tools, it's going to be virtually impossible for somebody to actually crack your password. One other example, or one another advice I'll give you is that try to change your password often, so that even if the bad guy got access to your hash of your password and trying to crack it, before they know, you have changed it again to something else. So it's going to be difficult for them to actually get your password. Okay, all right. So before I proceed to the next demonstration, I really have to explain how web applications work. Now, anytime you visit any web application, let's say you visit Wells Fargo to check how much you have in your account, right? You go to, you open your browser, you type your username and password, then you log into the Bank of America account, and you are able to view your transaction, right? There is a process, right? So in most web applications you see is made of at least 3 components, right? We have at least 3 components. The first component is what we call the web client, right? What is the web client? The web client is your browser. So if you are using Firefox or you are using Google Chrome, right? That is the web client, right? So that's the web client, what you use to have access to what we call the web server, which is on the other side, which belongs to the organization. So the web client is what belongs to you, your browser, and then the web server belongs to Wells Fargo. So the web server is the server that make the content of the application, your banking application, viewable to you, right? So those applications are usually written in what we call usually the web servers are usually Apache or IIS, right? So those are the lingo in IT. So most of the web servers that we have out there will be Apache, right? That I have right here, or IIS, right? Then you have the web application itself, the application that actually help you to complete some activities. So let's say, for example, if I want to view my my activity history, the money that I spent, let's say last week, this is the application, the web application is what's going to actually do the processing for me. And then the database is where you have all your account information, like username and password, all activities stored. So is you have 1, 2, 3, 4 components. So you have the web client, which is your browser. You have the web server, which is the server that make the content of the web application viewable to you, the user. And then you have the web application that the web application what actually process your request, right, to give you what you need. And then you have the database that actually store all the sensitive information like your banking activity, your username and password. To explain this in a very layman term, imagine you go to a restaurant, right? Let's say you go to one of your favorite restaurants. I know, Serge, you like Outback, right? Let's say you go to Outback, your favorite restaurant. Then when you go to the restaurant, you sit down. Who comes to you first? Your server, right? So you are the client sitting down. Your server will come to you, right? What is the role of your server? Your server will take your order. Let's say Serge want to eat a very delicious beef with potatoes, right? So that is what he's going to order. I know he's an African man. He's going to prefer to eat akpele. You know, you're going to prefer akpele, but let's stick with Outback. So let's say he want to eat. You tell your client, I want, or your server, you tell your server, I want beef with potato, right? So he'll take your order. So that is the web server. He'll take your order. Who is he going to take your order to? He's going to take your order to the chef. The chef here is what? Is the web application. He's going to look at your order and say, this guy want our biggest beef, well done with potatoes, right? So that is your order, right? So he's going to process your order. Now, to process your order, he had to gather the ingredient to cook your food for you. Where is he going to pick all the ingredient from? He's going to pick it from the database, which is the fridge here. So he had to pick all the food from the fridge. So the fridge here is the database. That's where all the ingredients are saved. So here, in the analogy that we use, the web client here is the client that visited the restaurant. The web server is the server that served the client. The web application here is the chef that will cook the food. And then the database is the fridge where all the food is stored. So now, every single hacker dream is to get access to this database, because all the sensitive information are always stored in the database. So with good security practice, you want to make sure that for somebody to actually get access to this database, it should be so hard. So many companies, what they do is that when they have a topology like this, they're going to put a firewall here, a firewall here, a firewall here. What is a firewall? A firewall is just an application or device that restricts access to a network. Short like that, to control inbound and outbound traffic from a network. Let's leave it like that. I don't want to go too deep. So usually they're going to have a control in place, like from the web client to the web server, you're going to have a firewall. From the web server to the web application, you're going to have another firewall. And from the web application to the database, you have another firewall. So they can make rules and say that only the web server can talk to the web application, and only the web application can talk to the database. So the database will not go straight and talk to the web server, right? And here I put some of the coding languages we use for all this. I don't want to bore you guys all about all this, but just know that when you visit most web applications, the most secure way is to have what we call the 3 tiers theory, where you have the web application, you have the web server, the web application, and then the database, right? That is the most secure way of protecting the database that contain all the sensitive information. Okay, now, with all this being said, now I can move to the demonstration of the day. So I'm trying to demonstrate to you guys how somebody can easily crack your password. Okay, now for this example, I have an application that I have running on my computer here, which is like a web application, a vulnerable web application that have been built to show people how easy it is to actually crack password, right? Now, with this demonstration, right, so it should be back. We should be back by now. All right, should be back by now. Okay. All right. Okay, so we are back. All right. So what I was saying is that what is SQL injection? So SQL injection basically is the vulnerability that allow the bad guys from the web client, which is the browser, to be able to get information straight from the database, right? So remember, The only server that should be able to talk to the database is supposed to be the web application. So if from the web client here, from our computer, from our browser, we are able to query the database and retrieve things like people's username and password, then that is bad. That means that web application is not secure. We shouldn't be able to run queries from this web client here to retrieve information from here, right? So one way to for application developers to avoid this issue is to make sure that they have what we call maybe where you can where in a web application you have what we call input field. You have a method of filtering in place, meaning that you cannot run command like SQL command to query the database to remove information. So here I will give you an example. So here, if you look at the man, what is going on? Let me see something. You guys give me 1 minute. Let me see something. All right, so it's not going to allow me to do any modification. So just going to try to, yeah, so we're just going to try to push it that way. There's nothing I can do at this point. I don't know why the connection is dropping, but we're just going to manage. Okay, so so here, so this is an input field. So it's supposed to be, when you put your user ID, there will be information that will display about your username and your name. Let's say if my user ID is 1. Man, when I plan to teach some good stuff and then these things is happening, man. All right, so you guys got the idea of the username. So let's say I put here a SQL statement that basically say that I want to retrieve every single information from the database that is running behind the application. So so on my penetration testing engagement, that's what I do to try to see whether I retrieve information from the database. Let's say well, I don't even know what is going on anymore, man. Oh, jeez. Man. So let me do this quick. So here, so I have, once again on the screen, you guys have, I was able to pull up the username and password. So I'm just going to try one for you guys. Is, let's say I copy this hash password. I just copy it and just go on Google, right? Just go on Google. I'm not going to even use any tool. I just go on Google and I just paste this and then just search online. I'm telling you, Google is the most powerful tool, right? So I Google it and I have a match. So I click on the link, and you guys can see this hash, the password is ABC123. That's the password. Right? So let me try another one. Let me go back to the vulnerable application. Let's pick this one. The username is Pablo. Let's pick the hash. Let's go back to Facebook. Not Facebook. Google. Let's paste this and see whether can we get something. Let me paste it. Search for it. And let's pick this one. And voila. I think we have this one too. And this hash is let me in. So now the only reason I'm able to quickly guess all these hashes that the passwords were not strong. ABC123 is so easy. Let me in is so easy. So that is the only reason why I was able to find those passwords so quickly, right? But you'll be amazed when I go on some engagement to do penetration testing. You'll be amazed to see how easily you can guess people's password, right? So basically, this is what I want to show you guys on this one. Okay, hopefully Facebook will not do anything to us again. Now, in real life, how do you use all these tools that are all this like? How do you use this integrity stuff that I'm be talking about in real life? How do you use that? Now, in real life, integrity is used in basically maybe in 3 ways. The first one is to validate the softwares that you are downloading, right? So let's say, for example, if the creator of the software will make the software available for you to download and also make available the hash, right? Remember, if I hash a file 100 times, it should give me, if nothing changed, it should give me the same hash value anytime I hash it again. So let's say if a virus actually, let's say on the site, I want to download an application, right? I'm not too sure whether it's a virus or not. What I can do is that I can download the file on my computer, right? I will not run it, but I can use a tool to check the hash, right? I'm going to show you a tool that I'm going to run right now to check the hash. Then I compare that hash with the hash on the actual company that is selling maybe the tool or software hash. If there is a match, then I know that that download that I copied from a different site is the same. If there's a difference in the hash, then I know that that file or that software have been what? Modified. I'll show you an example. Websites also use, basically they use what we call certificate, right? So certificate usually are used in website to encrypt communication. So when you go to Wells Fargo website and you see a padlock in the corner showing an HTTPS, what helped them to do the encryption is the certificate, right? To validate the certificate, usually the provider of the certificate, right, will provide a hash of that certificate on their website. So at the back end, what your browser will do is that it's going to quickly hash the certificate on the site and compare it to whoever provided that company with the certificate. So let's say if the provider of the certificate is GoDaddy for, let's say, Bank of America, right? Your browser will quickly run a hash of that certificate, right? And compare with the hash of Bank of America in GoDaddy, who is what we call the CA, the certificate authority. So GoDaddy will be the certificate authority, meaning GoDaddy is the one that issued the certificate to Bank of America. So you're gonna do a quick hash of that certificate and go to GoDaddy and compare, the hash that GoDaddy have for Bank of America. If it's a match, then your computer knows that yes, this is an actual site of Bank of America, right? I think next week I'm going to start a series on encryption where we're going to talk more about certificate and all that. So we're going to have a whole topic on encryption starting next week. So I'm going to explain this more. Then we also have file integrity checkers. So we have tools that company use to make sure that unauthorized modification are not happening to their files. So anything you have on a computer is the file. So if I have a Microsoft Word test that I type is a file, right? So that is a file. So what happened is company use tools like Tripwire, SolarWinds, Security Event Manager to just hash all their files on daily basis and compare it the next day to see whether have been any modification. Let's say if I hash something today, I hash a file today, and tomorrow I hash it again. If there's no modification, it should be the same thing, right? So companies, big corporations use tools like Tripwire, SolarWinds Security Event Manager, and within you also have Microsoft File Checker, Checksum Integrity Verifier tool, right? Is another one. Microsoft File Checksum Integrity Verifier tool is another one. You have the AFIC, that's another file integrity check tool, a checker. I show you guys the crypto tool. You have another tool called Hash My Files, and you have the Windows command that we call the SFC command. And then you have the Window App Locker, is also a tool that usually on Windows Pro and Windows servers that you can use to restrict what software your users can actually download on their computers, right? Or also make sure that anything that you are downloading on those computers are approved and they are genuine. So Windows App Locker is also another tool, right? So I'm going to provide you guys with maybe I'll post all this link later for you guys to maybe to share with you guys later. So I'm just going to do a quick demonstration on this one. Let's say I've gone to this website. Let me go back here. Let's say I've gone to this website here and I was able to download this application, right? The CrypTool application. And they also provided a hash. So this is the hash. So I have downloaded this on my computer and I want to make sure that this is a genuine software. What I can do is that I can run a command in what we call a PowerShell. This is the PowerShell, right? This is the PowerShell on my Windows. I can run this command, right? So I've downloaded that application in this folder right here. So the application that I've downloaded is this application, right? So I can run a PowerShell command using an utility called setUtil to see whether is this file genuine or not by comparing whatever hash I'm going to generate here with what we have on the website. So you can see the hash SHA-1 hash over there. So I'm going to run this command, right? Basically this command, what is doing that is going to hash this tool or this file for me. So I can do that, and then I'm going to run that and see whether it's going to generate something for me. Let me see. All right, so if you guys can manage to see, this is the hash right here. That's the SHA-1 hash. So if you see, just look at the end, it's 2484. So if I go back to this website, you can see it's 2484. So I'm sure it's the same hash. We can do the same thing for the 256. All I have to do, if I want to test the 256, All I have to do, I'm going to run the same command, but this time I'm going to remove the one and put 256 and hash it again, and I see the hash that I get, and then I'll compare it again to see. So here, this is the 256 hash. The end is F59. Let's compare it, and let's compare it F59. So I'm sure that this file is genuine, has not been modified, right? So that is that. Okay, let's move on today. I think I still have 2 slides to go. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is the availability. So we talk about confidentiality, integrity. So availability is mechanism that we put in place to make sure that the system is available when needed. So for example, if you have an ATM machine, right, or the bank has an ATM machine, their belief is that, or customers believe is that this ATM machine need to be available 24/7. So there are things those organizations can do to make sure that those system websites are available to the customers anytime they need it. So think about the concept of what we call single point of failure, right? So you don't want to have a single point of failure, right? You want a backup. You want to have redundancy, right? You want to make sure that you build systems that are fault tolerance, meaning that if one goes off, the other one takes over. So in building fault tolerance, you have to think about something we call backup, right? Backing up your system all the time, right? I know all these concepts, virtualization, cloud computing, are things that if I want to start explaining now, it's going to take time. But I think backup, everybody understands backup. So you need to back up your system more often so that if something happens, you can take your backup copy and then you can restore your system. Generator is one thing that we can easily explain to. So if you have your system that you are using the power, the power coming from maybe the county or from the city, right? You also want to have a generator just as a backup so that if the main source of power goes off, you can use a generator, right? We can also talk about something we call the concept of hot, cold, and warm site. So those are lingo usually used by big organizations that have their service or application hosted in a building that we call data centers. So data centers are like building where, like if you have Wells Fargo, will have all of their servers and application. That's where they're going to reside. So if they have a plan to have a hot site simply means that if they have a primary site, let's say they have a primary site in Atlanta, they might have a secondary site right here in Maryland that will have the same thing in the primary site, will be the same thing in the secondary site, so that if the primary site goes off, automatically the secondary site will take over. That's what we call hot site. In the terms of cold site, you might have the primary site and the secondary site, but in the secondary site, they don't have anything. So if something happened to the primary site, then they have to come back to the cold site to rebuild the infrastructure so that the cold site could be functional and take over the primary site. And then the warm site is in between. So you have your primary site, you have your secondary site. The secondary site might have some few equipment. It might take some days for the warm site to come up to take over from the primary site. So now, depending on the nature of the business the organization is involved in, they're going to choose one of these sites. So for example, if it is a bank, obviously they're going to have a hot site. If it is a school, like let's say University of Maryland, they might opt in for a warm site or a cold site. Remember, the site that you choose will require an investment. So the organization have to do their assessment to make sure that whatever sites they want to build really makes sense in terms of business, right? So they have to consider that. So just think about University of Maryland. Do they really need a hot site? Can they afford to be offline for one day? right? Then ask yourself the same question. Can Bank of America or Wells Fargo afford to be offline for a day, right? So that is a question, some assessment they need to do and decide whether they should have a hot, cold, or warm site, right? Now, in terms of you, what can you do to maintain availability of your computer or of your phone, right? Most of us know OneDrive, Google Drive, and use WhatsApp all the time. So with all those application, right? OneDrive, Google Drive, and WhatsApp, you can actually sync the content of your the content. As with OneDrive, you can sync the content of your computer, right? All the data you have in your computer, you can sync them automatically to OneDrive, so that if your computer crashed today, you can go back to your OneDrive in the cloud and restore all of your information. The same thing with WhatsApp. You can back up your WhatsApp information or chat, whatever you have, on a daily basis or weekly basis, so that if something happened to your WhatsApp, you can restore. So that is more useful to you guys. And I have the links here. I think I'm going to share all these links. These are videos. If you don't know how to sync your OneDrive or your Google Drive, these are all videos that you can actually watch, and to show you how to sync these sync your computer to these application. All right, so we have come to the end. So we talk about, for these 3 weeks, we talk about confidentiality, integrity, and availability. We explain what it is. But I'm going to say one thing before we go, is that you cannot treat confidentiality, integrity, availability equally, right? Depending on the situation, one will weigh more than the other. And I usually give this example. If you go to court and you have evidence that you need to present at a court, right? Now, confidentiality, integrity, availability, which one do you think is most important? In the court, the integrity of the evidence is very important. So in that situation, integrity will have more value than confidentiality and availability. Let's say weather forecast for a pilot, right? Weather forecast information for a pilot. Now, the pilot will need that information as soon as possible, so that it can have a smooth flight, right? So in this situation, availability will be more important. All right, so I just want you to remember that all of them cannot be treated equally. It depending on the situation, one will weigh more than the other. All right, so on that note, that is the end of the stuff that I have for you guys today. Sorry, we have some difficulties with Facebook, but I was able to finish this, and so now I'm open for questioning. If you guys have any question, this is the time for you guys to ask it. If you guys prefer calling me, you can also call me on 240-608-9264. So I'm going to have the floor open for 5 minutes, and then after that we call it a day. So if you have any question, Dre Gunshot Jr., for short, Derek, how you doing? Thank you for the good words. God bless you too. Azmaro Lydia, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Estelle Dimbare, Kofi Kwafi, Exaucé Junior, Serge Akpokli, Giovanni. Guys, if you have any question, this is the time for you guys to ask me. Temi, Nana Raf, Michael Kolani. If you guys have any question, I still have the phone line open for 4 minutes. You can call me on 240-608-9264, or you can actually send me a text, like a comment here on Facebook, and I'll read it and try to answer it as I can. Claire Tassa, So Clara, can you show us an example of blind penetration testing and target penetration? Show us the difference. Okay. So that will be a little bit advanced for this crowd, but I'll try to show you guys maybe in the next 2 weeks. I can show you the difference between blind SQL injection and then blind SQL injection and then the error-based SQL injection. I can show you guys that difference. The difference between a blind SQL injection and error-based SQL injection. That could be something I can do in the next 2 weeks. Next week, I want to tackle talk more about cryptography and show you guys more stuff on cryptography. And then after that, I can try to show you guys, as Clara wants to know, some examples of blind SQL injection and error-based SQL injection. I will do that maybe in the next 2 weeks. Michael Kulani, I'm glad you like it. George Asaya is asking whether I'm a Togolese. Yes, I'm a half Togolese, a half Ghanaian. I'm half. So, yeah. Giovanni, you're asking whether the cracking tools are free to download. Yes, I know, Giovanni, you have access to Kali Linux. So Kali Linux is one tool that have all tool that have all those tools that I'm talking about. So if you have a version of Kali Linux is a tool that most web pen testers use to try to penetrate into systems. So Kali Linux, if you don't know how to spell Kali Linux, I can spell it for you. Is a good tool to look into if you want to get deep into penetration testing. Kali Linux is the Linux-based system or tool, right? So Kali Linux, okay. So you can do that. Let me see. So 2 more minutes and we call it a day. You guys can still call me if you want. You can send me your questions. I'll be glad to read it and answer them for you. Foliden Bilan, how you doing? So so for you guys, your information, I actually have a school where we train people in cybersecurity. I have few of my students online right now, so you can, if you are really interested in getting into cybersecurity, I'll say that you should visit our site. Our site is, so the school name is SmartThink. I'm just going to log into the site and show you guys. SmartThinkLLC.com. So I have this school running for the past 9 years. So I have trained a lot of people that are currently working for the federal government, private companies, you know. So this is something that I've been doing for a while. So if you are interested, you can actually visit our site. So this is a site. So you can visit this site. This is the URL right there. Is a SmartThink. Remember, it's double T here. SmartThinkLLC.com. That's the phone number right there. So you can call us. Our next class will start July 11. Will be our next class. So if you're interested in changing career to start making a lot of money, making 6 figures, I can tell you, cybersecurity is where to go. So Visit our website. We have all the information you need on that website. You can also call us, and we can help you. Help you to get where you want to be. Okay, so just visit the website. All right. One more question, if you want. Yeah, you can make 6 figures easily. I have a lot of students that are making 6 figures. A lot. I have trained well over 300 students that are currently working. Anytime I go to a federal building in DC here, I usually meet one of my students. I have if you go to, let me see, if you go to Census Bureau, I have more than 10 students over there. You go to FAA, Federal Aviation Agency, I have more than 10 students over there. You go to CMS, Center for Medicare and Medicare Services, I have a lot of students over there. I have students that are working for the banks. I'm working for cruise lines in Florida. I have students working at the Discovery Channel. I have students all over. So cybersecurity is where you want to be, and cybersecurity is not going anywhere. It's here to stay. So you can visit our website. You can call us, email us. You have all the information that you need on the website. Oh, I think you guys can see the number. So you guys can yeah, so that's the number right there. So you guys can call the number or email us, we're gonna respond. Okay, all right. So if there are no more questions, I'll say thank you guys so much for being part of the show. Until next week, I stay live the life you love the life you live. Stay blessed, and thank you so much for being part of the show. And I'll see you guys next week for us to talk about cryptography. All right, bye for now.